Hello and welcome to the latest episode of my 2023 Rugby World Cup preview series. Today we'll begin to round things off by looking over the Tier 2 nations of Namibia, Romania, Georgia and Portugal. Joining me first of all is Rugby Europe writer Francisco Isaac, and I'll start with you first, Francisco. Are you excited for the upcoming World Cup?
Yes, of course. For me, being from a nation that it's going to only be the second time in the World Cup, it's strange for the people in Ireland or New Zealand, Australia, or France to understand why we get so passionate about it. Because most of the time, as we didn't qualify, we love it even more because it's a dream that we could not obtain it, but now it's become a reality for the Portuguese fans that after 2007 we're going to be there for the second time. So I'm very keen and motivated by it.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I suppose I know we don't have it noted, but just because you are, speaking on behalf of Portugal, is there is that excitement nationwide or is it kind of subdued? Because obviously we'd perceive Portugal to be a soccer nation, but coming into this World Cup, is there a big amount of hype, especially with it just being over in France? It's not far away.
Well, I cannot say it's generally a big motivation for the rest of the country, of the majority of the country. As rabies is small in Portugal, and due to bad mismanagement, mismanagement from the 2008 until 2018. Our numbers dwindled, and the biggest problem was the attention outside of our rugby bubble almost died out. And now with the World Cup, I understand there's a lot of Portuguese fans in Portugal that want to make it a big thing, but look, it's difficult when we have handball, volleyball, basketball growing big, and like we forgetting football. Those three sports are leagues ahead of Portuguese rugby, and that's why I only think the big attention and the big motivation to the people to see it will only come after the first game, when the first anthem is going to be sang and Portugal scores a try against Wales, because I'm sure if they're going to score at least one try against, not winning, but scoring a try, I'm sure that like 40% of the people in Portugal that love sports will start to see the Lobos team play. I think from these 40%, the majority won't understand why we are losing against Fiji and Georgia, but it's a road. And after this, I think the work has to be done outside of the pitch, and to break the rugby bubble and try to augment it, the attention that the Portuguese rugby deserves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose we might as well start with them now, seeing as we did decide to discuss Portugal. But they start with Wales in Nice in their opening game. It's on the second week of the tournament, however.
Mhm.
I suppose like it's Pool C is tricky enough as it is in terms of we don't actually know which of the top three or top four teams are going to get out, and Portugal come in under the radar. But what do you think we can expect then from Portugal? Do you think there is a surprise in the offing?
Well, I think it's one of those pools that we're gonna be serious. Everyone is expecting that Australia and Wales to come through. I know there's some dreams for Fiji or Georgia to come out of it, which is possible, but uh, all has to do with the calendar. Calendar, sorry. Today I spoke with Luis Pizarro, who is assistant coach for the Portuguese national team, and he was explaining this, and I've written about this 2 weeks ago, that Portugal has two games that I think it can win. It's against Georgia, because it's going to be Georgia's second game or third game. They be a bit battered, and Fiji. Fiji's his last game. If Fiji goes to that game qualified for the quarterfinals, they're going to put a second string team on the pitch. If they have no chances to get into the third place, which let's imagine it's going to be Georgia, their motivation and morale is going to be low compared to the Portuguese, because we're gonna be like sharks smelling blood in the water. Fiji goes to the game without. I'm not going to see passionless because they're very passionate about it, but to go to the last game with no goals to fulfill, it's a game that Portugal can win, and it's going to be 50-50. That's why I consider this Georgia and Fiji to be the top games for Portugal to give a surprise. When I like half an hour ago, I was thinking, saying to you what I would say to you about predictions in this pool. For Portugal, I would say the high prediction, so bold prediction, will be Portugal to lose against Wales and Australia by 7 or below 7 points. So 1 point
Yeah.
from losing, and winning against Fiji or Georgia, or at least tying one of against Fiji and winning against Georgia. These are my bold predictions, but the mid prediction will be Portugal to lose only by 30 points against Australia and Wales, and slot a win against Georgia and lose against Fiji by 7 points.
And hopefully the one of the bold predictions comes off anyway for Portugal. And you're obviously excited, which is the beauty of World Cups, no matter what the sport. And Max Woods joins us also. And Max, before we get into, we're going to touch on Namibia, who are in Pool A. Where's your excitement levels coming into this tournament?
Oh, I'm I'm off the scale excited to be honest. I've been waiting all summer, listening to more and more podcasts and watching videos. I think we come into it, it's still one of the most open World Cups we've had in a very long time. Even as, it seems like New Zealand, Ireland, and France have kind of separated themselves, maybe South Africa as well. But there's still so much potential with the way the draws come for upsets in the pool stages, even into the quarterfinals. So we're talking about tier two nations today. There's so many opportunities for tier two nations to have a good shot at taking out some of the tier one nations getting into the quarterfinals.
Absolutely. And I suppose one of the teams who consistently make the tournament but consistently don't really get anywhere is Namibia. And we're going to touch on them now. And I suppose what do you think we can expect from them I suppose players who we could look out for? I know it's a tricky pool. Most teams in that pool would expect to beat them quite handsomely. But what do you think we should expect both player wise and in terms of results, Max?
Well, I mean, they're in a pool with France and New Zealand, and Namibia have had it tough the last couple of years having the All Blacks in their pool. But and you look at their squad, and there's some good players here, but it's really the depth. It's really the depth that they lack. Their first their if you could pick their strongest 15, there's some solid players in there who play in France and in South Africa. But it's when you look down to their bench and you see players playing, in the fifth, sixth tier in France or in the Namibian domestic leagues that you really think that they're going to start struggling, in those last 20 minutes of games. And in terms of players I'd look out for, I think number one is they've captured Richard Hardwick, who's been capped for the Wallabies, but was born in Namibia. He's a regular for the Melbourne Rebels, and he's a really good abrasive back rower. Him combining with Rian Conradi, who plays for the New England Free Jacks in America, but has had a spell at Gloucester, and he's a really solid player. He's been standing out in the States for a while. With him and Adrian Boyson, who's also playing in the States, those three can be a really abrasive, hard-working, big ball carrying back row. And if Namibia are gonna limit the damage against the big boys and maybe give Italy or Uruguay a bit of a scare, I think it's going to come down to that back row and the rest of their pack really really digging in and giving some of their backs, who there's some dangerous backs in there, some hard running direct fast players. They want to give them some space. I mean, if you look at their previous performances this summer, when they have got motoring in their attack, particularly against Chile, which they won, it was when they were able to get fast ball and get the likes of Johan Dijssel in the back in the back line, Divan Russo on the ball, running hard. When Damien Stevens at scrum half is able to give them fast ball, that's when they're able to play some good rugby. So they're not without talent, and I think they could they could push they could maybe push the likes of Italy or Uruguay for a half or for 60 minutes, but ultimately it's going to be tough for them to limit the damage when their depth is just not quite what the other nations are.
And that's kind of what we're going to be expecting from most of the conversation here today. Francisco, just from your point of view, do you think we should expect that from Namibia, or will it just be they'll be the? Do you expect them to be the bottom side of Pool A?
It's a very tough pool for Namibia. I followed badly for the last 10 years what's been working there, what's been happening there. And I think in the same crisis as Romania, but a bit worse. And I think, or a major upset happens when one of the top teams in a group, and like a red card at the beginning of the match happens, and they have the perfect game. And this is all about it. It is the perfect game. And in the last 5 years, I've seen teams from tier 2 sides doing perfect games against tier 1 nations and coming out top or closely to the top. But for Namibia, I think it's going to be a very not a very bad World Cup, because for me there is bad World Cups for T2 nations, because the attention span and the marketing and so on helps for limited time, but it helps. So, but I don't expect them to have a big World Cup in terms of results yet.
No, that's fair. And I suppose one team who you did mention there, we were going to move on to next anyway, it's Romania. And they are in Ireland's pool, in Pool B. Some might say it's the pool of death with South Africa, Scotland, and Tonga also in that pool. And Francisco, it hasn't been a great run of form for them recently, hammered by Italy at the weekend. And Italy really just kind of just stuck it into neutral kind of thing, that second half. They took it easy, really. And like expectations are low for Romania. I know you cover an awful lot of the European Rugby Championship and all that. So what do you think we should expect from them? Do you think it's going to be one of their less impressive journeys in this campaign?
Well, first, looking to the squads and what the last results of the 2023, the Review Championship was a bad one for them. They finished at third, yeah, it was good, above Spain, but they almost lost that match. And now they were with the full best team due to injuries, not players that was arrested, just injuries. But the overall quality came down in 2023. If you go to YouTube and watch the Rugby Europe Championship from 2022 and 2023, you can see there's a dip in quality and team cohesion from one year to the other. In 2022, they were able to beat Portugal in Bucharest by 20 points with a second half that I call like the perfect game, and last half an hour is just perfect. The team just rocked. Portugal completely wrecked, broke apart. But in 2023, it changed. Romania against Portugal was easily beaten in the second half. In the first half, they didn't have more than that strong. And now I think the Italy game, for me, it wasn't the worst part of it. It was against Georgia, losing by 50 points to Georgia, which is a record loss for them against an all-time rival. It's something that no one was expecting. I wasn't. I said Romania by 20 max, and when I see the final score 50, it was just heartbreaking. And I think the two losses with injuries, with some problems in camp, and the fact that this season their best team and some of the most pivotal players are old, like McAvey and Surigyu, which are beautiful players, but at the moment they can't do what they did in 2015, because 2019 they weren't in a World Cup. I think they won't do as bad as people are thinking at this point, like 100 points loss or 90 points loss. But it's going to be I think against the Box and Ireland is going to be dreadful.
That's not a great way of looking at it, but suppose, Max, that Pool B is going to take up an awful lot of focus here in Ireland in particular, the fact that the Ireland are in it. But it's already been touted as the game that Ireland would rotate most heavily in. And I suppose that's not a great stead for Romania coming into this. And I suppose, what do you expect? Do you think they can pull off a shock anywhere? Do you think they could maybe be a banana skin for one of the teams?
I don't know. Watching them in their last couple of games, I mean, it's been almost amateur at times how bad the defense was, particularly against Georgia. I thought was just some of the tries they conceded are just unacceptable at this level. And like even at the Italy game, the Italians were rusty at times. They were dropping a lot of balls, but they still managed to put nearly 60 points on. I don't see where that upset could come from. I think Tonga have been a bit overrated at the moment. They've not been performing particularly well this summer, but I think they've got more than enough firepower to overcome Romania, and that's sad really. Because I mean, even if you look back to a couple of years ago, Romania gave Argentina a really close game, and they just seem to be going so far backwards. And given it's such a storied rugby nation, looking back to the 80s and 90s, I really hope that someone can step in and turn the ship around because whatever setup they've got at the moment is clearly not working.
Absolutely. It's a shame, as we said before, but suppose that we're nearly done. We'll run through the teams. We will get into predictions afterwards, but the hottest property of all the teams of tonight's conversation is Georgia, and some people are saying they might possibly squeeze out of that group, but realistically, the prize of third place, automatic qualification for 2027, is the big aim for them at the very least. And Max, I suppose before we get into whether or not they can cause an upset against Wales or Fiji or possibly Australia, what are you making of Georgia at the moment? Do you think we can take a lot maybe from that win over Romania, for instance, or do you think they're coming in maybe not under the radar because it's been spoken about, but primed and ready to go?
Well, do you know, I think they are coming in a wee bit under the radar, and only because they're sharing that group with Fiji, who are of course also flying, and a lot of the sort of focus in terms of like upsets is coming on Fiji. But I think Georgia, they're just a really solid, hard-working team with a bit of flair out wide to finish those tries when you need. Got a really, really big, heavy carrying pack, and you look at their results. I mean, since they beat Wales last year, they haven't lost a game. They beat the USA comfortably. They've smashed Romania, smashed Portugal. Um, I think, and you look at they do have depth in their squad, which they may have lacked at times in the past. But I think the bringing in the Black Lion team has given them a bit of cohesion and given regular game time for those guys who maybe would be sitting on the periphery of the pro data squads or playing domestically in Georgia. So I think they're in a good a position as they could hope to be to cause an upset. I don't know if it's probable, but it's like definitely possible like that they could get out of their group. I mean, finishing third is that probably should be that's a realistic aim for them.
And I suppose it's again, Francisco, you'd have watched a good bit of Georgia in recent times. They look to be the undisputed kind of top team of the tier two nations. Some people say maybe get them into the Six Nations. That's for an entirely different conversation. But having beaten Wales, having beaten Italy last year, having
Mhm.
coming in looking like they're in great form, do you think they can be the one to pull off the biggest shock of the lower ranked teams?
Well, I think so. We were talking about Romania and Georgia and Portugal. I think one thing that stood out in comparison to all three of them is the conditioning and the physical aggression that they offer to the game. If you go watch Romania against Italy and Georgia, the last two matches, physical conditioning wise, they are just completely dropped. After half an hour playing against Georgia, you could see them like didn't have the step and the pace to accompany them. And the last 20 minutes is completely Georgia didn't score like 80 or 90 points in that match because the last 20 minutes were like knock-ons and playing around and pass straight to the line out and so on. But the physical conditioning in Georgia is above normal. And I know Fiji is doing a lot of work, so I think Fiji Georgia is going to be one of the biggest games in the World Cup for me this year. The sheer passion quality they're gonna put in that match is gonna be over the top. And I think if Wales starts to playing the kicking game against them, they're going to have a very bad time. I've seen what Georgia is trying to do, and if you can go to see the game against Romania, as Lopshanic is kicking from like 16 meters out of the pitch. So they're training penalties from all over the field. So if they have to take it to get 3 points at the critical moment of the match, they're going to do it. And they did the same against the USA. They're training small things that you might not see it clearly, but when you understand there's a plan, and the plan is to win against Wales by kicking penalties. Australia is going to be who has the better pack at the moment. I don't know, because the Georgian pack scrum wise and line out and maul is just ferocious, and we'll see. For me, Georgia can be the shock of the World Cup. Things have to go their way. Like a yellow card, a red card in the first half an hour is going to kill them. If they get like 100% well disciplined, I'm not saying zero penalties, by like 2 penalties in 20 minutes, I think they're going to pull enough, not just one upset, but a couple of them.
And it would be great to see, because as we've said in other podcasts, it's those results that really bring a World Cup to life, be it Japan, Uruguay, whoever it may be, Fiji in years gone by, Samoa. And I suppose because of the nature of this conversation, we are talking about tier 2 teams. I might just change things around when it comes to predictions. So we'll start with Namibia there in Pool A. And just quickly, lads, firstly, I want to see where you think each side will finish, be it, third, fourth, fifth, maybe even second in their pool. But also, what constitutes a good World Cup? And I'll come to you first, Francisco, about Namibia. What would be a good World Cup for them?
Oh, good World Cup for Namibia. I say it's a difficult question you pose, because losing all 4 games, no one is going to say it's a good result. But losing the games without being, and I hate this word, humiliated, but let's not say humiliated, but like trashed around and be shown like it's his full amateur team, would be good. So losing more than 50 points would be bad at the moment, because if you go see the last 7 World Cups, the gap between T1 and T2 sides is getting narrow. And if Namibia and Romania lose by 80 points, I know what voices are going to come out again, saying the gap is getting big again, and so on and so on. So for me, Namibia can't lose any of the matches by more than, let's say, 30 points. I know it's hard at the moment to see if they can do it, but that's my best projection for them.
And it's the nature of it. They're not up against, say, in England, who are struggling to score tries. They're up against France, who have more wingers than Namibia nearly have, good enough rugby players. That's just the nature of the beast in France. And Max, what do you think? What is a good World Cup for them? And I assume you'll be looking at a fifth place finish in that pool.
Yeah, that's right. I think if we see from them, if they can build themselves enough of chances in the game that they can show what they're about and show a bit of attacking flair and time on the ball, score tries in every game. Give Uruguay a solid shot. I don't think they'll win that game, but give them like a good game, and yeah, keep the margins down against New Zealand and France below 35 or so. I say that I think they'd take that.
And listen, here's hoping all 4 of these teams will have shocked. The reality is it won't be the case. But I suppose I'm hoping Romania don't pull off a shock in the opening day of the World Cup or the second day of the World Cup because they do face Ireland. But coming to you first there, Max, what would be a good result for them? Francisco touched on possibly improving their well, they have to improve their form first of all from what we've seen. But what would be a good World Cup and where do you see them finishing? Do you think they can maybe take Tonga and finish fourth?
Well, do you know, if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said, yeah, maybe they could give Tonga a go. But at this point, give Tonga a game and that's a success. I think they're in a similar position to Namibia. I think they need to, I think if they can, if some new players for them, some new young players emerge during the course of the tournament for them to build on in the future, give them some experience and don't let the scores become embarrassing. I think that's probably about where they should be at.
And coming back to you then, Francisco, for that question, like what's the best case scenario for Romania? Is it a win or is it, good results against top teams?
No, I would say a win against Tonga, and who is hearing me might think I'm crazy, but it and that match is going to do to going down to two elements. Sorry, first one, the pack. If the forward pack of Romania can dominate Tonga in the scrum and in the maul, I think Tonga is going to have a bad time, because if the pack doesn't have ball, the back line isn't going to play, and Tonga is not a team of counterattack. If you went to see the matches they had as warm up, you could see that counterattack is not their main strong point. Second, it was going to do all to do also with injuries. If Romania goes to that match with a clean sheet, so nobody of the big players like Valvas, Gontiniak, Makovej, Ser, Savin, Kojukaru, Kirika, or Hupanu injured, I think they have a good shot. And I would say a third one is discipline. I think Tonga is in a bad way on these warm-up matches, is their discipline. But Romania discipline is completely down at the moment. It's not only just hands on the rug or player not moving in time. It's things illegal to the game, and they should stop with it. And I know why they're doing it, because it's conditioning. It's all due to conditioning. Okay? They're tired, and so they want to slow the ball at with all means. But the match officials, the game is completely seen by all cameras, so they can't do that, and it's foolishness at this point.
It's a good synopsis, and well, I suppose hopefully we don't see this. We don't see it at this kind of cynicism, as you may say. And we'll move on now to Pool C. Portugal, first of all, before we go to Georgia and obviously Francisco. You would only love to see them, and we'd only love to see them, come out of that pool in incredible fashion. It's unlikely, but I suppose from the rational point of view, as someone who's watched them in the European Championships and so on, what do you think is the realistic aim for them, and where do you see them finishing that pool?
Well, my prediction for Rugby World Magazine that I wrote was Portugal going to finish at last, so in fifth place. The Portuguese me want to believe Portugal will win at least one match, but if I go to a middle point, I would say Portugal has a good shot of winning out at least one match. The Portuguese team isn't just it isn't the same team as 2007, because the players are more professional. Max was talking about the Black Lion. We have the Lusitanos. More than half of the team plays in France in the Pro D2 or in top 14 on the National, and it makes a big difference. It's like completely big difference. It's something that's happened with. Well, just let me backtrack a bit. Romania had this in 2007 and 2011 and lost it. If you're going to see the squads that went to the World Cup and where the players played, you could see a lot of Romanian players in Pro D2 and top 14. And now you have just two at Pro D2, none in the top 14. And most of the players are or in the fourth division in France or in Romania playing. So for Portugal, that is the biggest takeaway. And I think Portugal, if they keep discipline to their best behavior possible, Portugal is going to do some surprises. The problem is discipline and the forward pack, but the forward pack at the moment is not a big problem issue for me. I've seen the games, and against the USA, after half an hour they start dominating. Conditioning, Portugal is perfect, and I think World Cup is always due to a good World Cup. Sorry, is always due to good conditioning and have no injuries. And Portugal at the moment have 2 injuries, but they're going to have a clean bill before the World Cup, and conditioning wise, they are top at the moment.
And Max, what's your take? Where do you see Portugal finishing that pool, and what is the realistic aim for them?
Well, yeah, I do think they'll probably finish fifth, but I feel like Portugal are probably going to be the team in this tournament that people kind of fall in love with watching. They're going to be exciting to watch, and I think they will cause some trouble for the teams above them. Of all like the sort of fifth seeds in each pool, they're the team that could, give make things difficult for a Wales or a Fiji, and you know, yeah, on their day they could catch Georgia unawares. They could catch Fiji unawares, much in the way that Fiji tried to rotate in the last World Cup against Uruguay and it backfired. And Uruguay won that game. I could see Portugal doing a similar thing if Wales or Fiji or Georgia tried to rotate too much. I mean, if Wales were to field a team like they fielded against South Africa last week, I would definitely say that game would be fairly competitive. But I'd say if they can pick up a losing bonus point or two, that I think that would constitute a very successful World Cup.
Yeah. And we'll wait and see. But I suppose if we're tipping Portugal to finish fifth, that means that Georgia will be the only team in this conversation not to finish fifth. So we're going to be ending on a high. And I'll come to you first, Max. Georgia, obviously, as I said at the top of the show, everyone's saying, can they come second? Can they get out of the group? Can they make a quarterfinal? But realistically, where do you see them finishing in this pool? They'll probably have aims to get out, having beaten Wales last year. But where do you see them finishing?
I honestly, you could ask me tomorrow or you could ask me yesterday, I probably have a different answer. The pool is so even, and I think Australia will get out of that pool, and I think Fiji will probably get out. I think that my big prediction will Wales will end up fourth and Georgia will finish third. I think Georgia have enough to beat Wales, like they did in the autumn. Um, they could get out. They could get out. I'm gonna say third, but you never know.
And Wales are truly the enigma of this World Cup. Some people saying semi-finals, some people saying fourth and having to re-qualify for the next World Cup. It's remarkable, really. But Francisco, you've a great knowledge of this Georgian team, as we've said. What do you think? Do you think they will be the tier two nation like Japan before, who would get out and get to the quarterfinals?
Well, see, what I wanted as a Portuguese fan and a T European rugby fan will be Georgia to finish in second or third, and Wales finish in second or third, because it means that for the next Rugby World Cup cycle, one spot opens up in the Rugby Europe Championship. So Portugal, Romania, Spain, and Netherlands wouldn't have to squander off with Georgia for that spot. So it will make things not easier, but people could relax a bit. So that will be the dream. So I say Georgia's going minimum is going to be at third place. Going to the quarterfinal, it's a very bold prediction because everything has to be perfect. Imagine they can win against Wales, lose against Australia by 1 point, and then because of the last game of Fiji and Portugal lose against Fiji by 5 points, and Fiji goes into the quarterfinals or goes Australia or something. But I don't know. Really, I won't say second place, but I'm going with a more cool down prediction. It's going to be third. Not under it. I've seen Georgia, and at the moment the players are completely focused on one or in what they are doing.
They're one to look out for, that's for sure, and it promises to be a great pool C. But before we go, I know we've probably gone a little bit late, but I do want to ask, who do you think is going to win the World Cup itself? I'm going to come to you first, Max. Who do you think is going to do it?
My heart and a little bit in my head say Ireland. I still think France at home with the firepower they've got. Although this summer their warm ups have been a little off. New Zealand are looking great at the moment, and I think it will end up being one of those three. And but if I was to pick one, I'm gonna back the boys and go for Ireland.
Yeah, I'll certainly take that. I haven't had too many Irish predictions so far. So, Francisco, who do you think is going to win the Webb Ellis Cup?
Well, I have a curse with me since the 2007 World Cup, so I can't say in my heart the team that I think is going to win because it's karma changes every time, and I'm going to say that Ireland, France, and New Zealand have the best shot getting in there. But if everyone treats the current reigning champions, the Springboks, as a team in fourth to win the World Cup, I think people are completely crazy because Hazi Erasmus, like Eddie Jones or Gatland, works his team to win in the World Cup. The Rugby Europe Championship, Six Nations, it doesn't matter. Warm-ups, Lion Series, it doesn't matter for them. They want to win the World Cup because it's, at the end of the day, it's the biggest prize of them all. And I think the Boks, I said Ireland, France, and New Zealand, but I'm going with the Boks. The Boks are going to win the World Cup this year again.
Will be that'll be quite the story in and of itself. And thank you very much, lads, for joining me. We're starting to round down the previews, and this was a very thorough look at the prospects of Namibia, Romania, Portugal, and Georgia. And thanks to everyone at home for listening as well. If you like what you see or hear, as always, do subscribe, leave a review, tell a friend, whatever you feel like. And you can find the links for my channels as well as for the lads' Twitter pages down below in the link. And Francisco, of course, brilliant for tier 2 content as always. So definitely want to keep an eye on in particular. And I highly recommend it. But for now, folks, until next time, do take it easy.